Welcome to part two of chapter one. Okay, we talked last time about what a method is, right? It's a framework or an approach to collecting, organizing, analyzing, and presenting your findings. And communication methods bridge the humanities, very traditionally approaches to looking at text like speeches and um, other kinds, and making documentaries and other kinds of more artful representations, and the social sciences, where we are looking much more specifically at either measurements or patterns in qualitative research. The four major methods or sets of methods, really, that we'll be talking about in this quarter are quantitative, which is all about measuring precisely. These are my shorthands for it. We're going to go into all these methods later, but for now, right, quantitative uses statistics to measure things very precisely and how they're related to other things very precisely. Qualitative research is about rich descriptions, about lots of examples, quotes from participants, descriptions from field notes that you have taken, excerpts from text you're analyzing, that kind of thing, and describing them richly. Third, critical research tries to analyze texts and behaviors and patterns that we notice in society in a persuasive way, meaning you're putting together an argument and saying, this is how I understand this, the meanings behind this TV show, or this is how I critique and interpret this speech that I heard given, right? Or this is how I understand the social media presence of this particular content creator. Okay, it's a critical argument, often having to do with things like gender and race and social class and disability and sexuality, but not always. And then fourth are creative methods. And that is where the goal is to express a set of ideas and a perspective on the world, or some aspect of the world, obviously, beautifully. So documentaries, podcasts, blog posts, you're trying to do an artful, you're trying to do a good job, right? Making those something that people would actually want to have interactions with, want to pay attention to. And we'll be exploring all four of those. What is a theory? Now, theories there's different kinds of theories. There's very social scientific theories, there's much more humanistic theories, and then there are much more arts or aesthetic based theories. But in general, a theory is an attempt to explain or understand something, right? It's a way, it's a framework. Works with methods in different ways. There's a great quote here from the book that I think is particularly critical in understanding this. When DeFrancisco and Palczeweski argue that a theory is not an absolute truth, but an argument to see, order, and explain the world in a particular way. There's lots of different theories that help us understand the world. And that is true even if you just narrow it down to communication theories. There's lots of them. They guide research in different ways. And we'll get into how that happens over the course of the quarter. And then lastly, theory and method work together and influence each other, and they can be synergistic, meaning that they can really enhance and help us to do something really well. So a particular social science theory like uncertainty reduction can help us to do quantitative research better, right? Social constructionism can help us do qualitative research, and say feminism or critical race theory or CRIP theory, which is the more radical form of disability studies theory, right? Those can all help us in critical research. And then lastly, it's important to understand that when we're doing research, all research then informs further research, right? We read or encounter, we watch other documentaries before making one, we read other research before doing research. Knowledge, therefore, is a command of facts, theory, and practical information that all go together, right, in a meaningful way. Epistemology is kind of a big word, but it's an important one for this class because each different method has a different epistemology behind it. Epistemology answers the question, what is knowledge, or what counts as evidence, right? How do we make knowledge? These are all questions that are part of epistemology. And it can be sort of shorthand. One of the ways we talked about that is that epistemology is an underlying logic of inquiry, right? It's the set of assumptions and rules that we use that go with the method that we then pick to do research. This is always circular, no matter which kind of the four you're doing, right? Previous things influence it, and whatever you create will influence other people's research in the future.